Cancer and Biochemistry 16, Thomas Seyfried, PhD, and How Cancer Works. Hello, it's November 7, 2018, and I'm Dr. Colleen Huber, here again today in the latest installment of my Cancer and Biochemistry video series. In my last video, we discussed a little of the life and great work of Nobel biochemist Otto Warburg, whose research into the basis of cancer, its basic metabolism, now provides the scientific foundation of the most successful cancer treatments in use today. This is what is now known as the metabolic approach to cancer. So today I want to acknowledge another groundbreaking scientist, and this scientist actually took Dr. Warburg's work further. In fact, everywhere the scientist looked, he found further confirmation of Dr. Warburg's findings, which is our current best understanding of how cancer actually functions. This contemporary scientist is Thomas Seyfried, PhD. He is a professor of biology at Boston College. As Sylvia Onosik says, Dr. Seyfried, quote, explains the ins and outs of cancer development, how it metastasizes, where it goes, and why, unquote. Now, really nobody has ever drawn such a complete map for us of how cancer happens in the body. In fact, Dr. Seyfried's work is so groundbreaking, there are some who feel that he should really be honored with the Nobel Prize in Medicine, and that it is overdue since publication of his groundbreaking 2012 book on the subject, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. You can find that book on Amazon. In this book, Dr. Seyfried derives support from over 1,000 scientific studies to illustrate how cancer forms and how it thrives. Experiments that have happened since Dr. Warburg's time, many of which Dr. Seyfried pursued himself, and many more done by others in other universities, which he describes in his book, show us in detail the mechanism of cancer formation and cancer maintenance. Now, first I have to give some background. After all the praise I just gave Dr. Seyfried, you would think that his name would be a household word, certainly the most famous living scientist and a hero of cancer patients all over the world. Yet, that is not at all true. His name is still relatively unknown, except among those scientists and laypeople who take an interest, and an open-minded interest, in the science of oncology. Why is Dr. Seyfried not getting the recognition he deserves? Conventional medicine is still using horrendously toxic and ineffective, and by the way expensive, treatments to address cancer in pursuit of a now disproven dogma. Conventional medicine favors the somatic mutation theory. This idea is that cancer originates with genetic changes. This is still the prevailing dogma regarding cancer, the idea of cells gone wild due to genetic mutations. However, Dr. Seyfried shows, in accordance with Dr. Warburg's earlier work, that genetic mutations are not the cause of cancer, but rather an effect. This is why you may find, for example, a genetic signature or one genetic profile in one tumor in a person, but not in a metastasis even in the same person. More alarming for the genetic theory believers is that the genetic profile of one part of a tumor is different than another part of the same tumor. Mostly, Dr. Seyfried illustrates for the reader that cancer begins not with damage to a cell's genetic machinery, not with damage to the DNA, but rather to the cell's energy production. That is, cancer begins with damage to the cell's mitochondria. As Otto Warburg found decades earlier, regardless of the first steps in cell injury leading to cancer, the main central event which causes cancer is irreversible injuring of respiration. That is, respiration at the cellular level. A process called oxidative phosphorylation, which is down here, is inhibited. The bottom line is that at some point the cell was deprived of oxygen. Now, when that happens, one possibility is for the cell to die. In fact, that is what happens most of the time, Dr. Warburg found. But the other possibility that happens once in a while is for the cell to upregulate oncogenes. It also inactivates tumor suppressor genes, so cancer can line up genes to work in its favor. Those genes and those genetic changes, a secondary effect, make it possible for the cell to survive in a totally different way. It survives by a process called anaerobic fermentation, which I mentioned in my previous videos. That comes this way. And that is how a cancer cell is born. It was a normal cell that faced a life-threatening lack of oxygen. So it changed its behavior drastically in order to adapt. It was either become a cancer cell or die. So that's what happened. Like I say, most of the time, such a cell will die, but rarely it becomes a cancer cell and then starts a very dangerous and ever-worsening chain of events. Now, let's consider this question. Why was the cell deprived of oxygen? One very common cause is a sedentary lifestyle. Exercise brings oxygen into the body. No, not just so we can blow it in and out of the lungs into huff and puff and impress the people who we run past. No. Rather, the purpose of exercise is that it brings oxygen into the body that is needed by our cells in order to survive and to undergo normal metabolism. You see 4 limbs attached to your torso? Yeah, me too. I see 4 limbs. Guess what they are there for? They are there in order for you to move. When you move, your lungs more actively bring oxygen into your body, which gives your cells what they need to survive. That oxygen also enables the body to avoid the cancer pathway that comes this way. Here is another benefit of exercise. It is the most effective way known to increase the number and the quality of mitochondria in your body. You remember from my earlier videos that the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the body. They give us our energy. We cannot function without them. So when exercise increases our mitochondria, when that happens, we know it has the effect of pulling metabolism back from this cancer pathway toward this normal pathway. But the other thing that it does, which is very helpful, is that it helps redifferentiate cancer cells. This means that it makes them more like normal cells in the way they act. This makes them much less malignant. Exercise then makes cancer cells less of a threat to the body. This has been known since 1969 at least. However, here is where Dr. Seyfried ties our understanding of the origin and survival of cancer all together to give us our best understanding to date. These were the experiments first of Israel and Schaefer, and then confirmed by the experiments of Shea and Warburg, and then in the experiments of Howell and Sager. When the nucleus of a cancer cell was transferred to the cytoplasm of a normal cell, the cell stayed normal. So the cytoplasm, the non-genetic part, was decisive in the fate of the cell. On the other hand, when the nucleus of a normal cell was transferred into the cytoplasm of a cancerous cell, the cell stayed cancerous. So here again, the nucleus, the genetic machinery, did not determine the fate of the cell. It was the cytoplasm again that was decisive. So now, let's step away from the laboratory for the moment, and let's now think about what we as individuals can do to use this information in order to help ourselves and our loved ones avoid this epidemic of cancer that we live with. To avoid entering that cancer pathway, that metabolic pathway that favors cancer, let's look at what we need to do in order to detour away from that path. In this order, I recommend the following. 1. Avoid toxins and radiation and some viruses to the best of your ability. This involves choosing organic food when possible, avoiding use of insecticides and herbicides and artificial air fresheners and synthetic cleansers around your home and your family, avoiding radiation exposure, choosing RO or spring water when available. 2. Exercise daily. Exercise is the best method I know to bring oxygen into the body. Exercise is not the exclusive realm of athletes. Your primary health insurance does not have a corporate name. You may think it does, but it doesn't. Your number 1 health insurance is exercise. Number 2 is nutrition. That expensive corporate health insurance you buy comes in 3rd after those 2. Exercise is an absolute requirement for those of any income level and all ages. Even the homeless and the elderly can afford to and can make time for a walk every day. Even the wheelchair-bound can lift balanced weights and do upper body work with them. Don't keep telling your doctor that you have a plan to begin exercise. Don't keep telling your doctor that you tried exercise once and it didn't work, so you quit. Those cancer patients who told me that are now dead. Start exercising today. Whether you walk today, bike tomorrow, run the next day, and go to the gym on the next day, or any mix of any exercise. Start with a half hour of gentle exercise. As you get stronger, increase your time and intensity. 3. Nourish yourself with whole, natural foods and not too much fruit. If you don't eat organ meats at least once per week, you will possibly need to supplement with at least a B complex. See your local naturopathic physician for specific recommendations related to your health at primarydoctor.org or naturopathic.org. 4. Always avoid sweetened foods. Stevia is okay, but likely none of the other sweeteners are risk-free. In his book, Dr. Seyfried asks, how many more cancer patients must die before the cancer field abandons the failed therapies based on the somatic mutation theory of cancer? Seyfried also warns, until we abandon the idea that cancer is a genetic disease and recognize that the mutations are downstream epiphenomena of the disease, there will be little progress in defeating cancer. Really, we owe it all to cancer patients to at least open our minds to a correct understanding of the nature of cancer and of a far more therapeutically successful system of cancer treatment, and that is the metabolic approach to cancer. Well, this is what I've learned from Dr. Warburg, Dr. Seyfried, and the many other scientists around the world who are finding consistent results in the metabolic origin of cancer and the metabolic reversal of cancer. It is November 7, 2018. I'm Dr. Colleen Huber, and thanks for watching.